On the 3rd of March 2017, 14 voluntary associations, also known as VAs, within the engineering fraternity submitted to the High Court an application to have the current council members of the Engineering Council of South Africa, ECSA, set aside. The VAs have raised concern over the legitimacy of this council, which was appointed by Public Works Minister Thulas Nxesi in July 2016. We recently spoke to Manglin Pillay, CEO of the South African Institution of Civil Engineering, Chris Campbell, CEO of Consulting Engineers South Africa, as well as Dr. Titus Mate, a former ECSA Council member and Central Registration Committee Chair, to give background into this court case. This is what they had to say.
The South African Institution of Civil Engineering, together with 14 other voluntary associations, are taking the Engineering Council of South Africa and the Department of Public Works to court, centers around what we believe is the unlawful appointment of the existing council. We believe that the Engineering Professions Act gives a clear process as to how a new council should be appointed and mandated, and it is, in our opinion, that process was not followed.
And it's not a confrontational action, it's more of a clarification more than anything else. And only a court of law can actually assess what has happened, look at what the legislation says, and then make a decision, make a ruling. And that ruling may actually have an impact on the operations of ECSA long term, not just on the short term. ECSA operates according to the Engineering Act 46 of 2000. It's legislated. It's an act approved by Parliament. So it's part of the suite of laws that we have in our country. Now, in terms of the nomination and appointment of the ECSA Council, there is a section in there that talks about how it's supposed to be done. And it's a must. It's not optional that you have to follow what is stipulated in the act. You must follow as is.
It's clear that no individuals may coerce the individual appointments onto council. It would mean decisions taken by that council needs to be legitimate. If, for example, we find, or the court finds, that the council is an unlawful council, then all the decisions taken by that council would also be unlawful.
If the organization's integrity is found wanting, every other process then could run the risk of becoming compromised. Because one of the consequences of a watered down registration system, people get through easily, get registered, start designing structures that may put public health and safety at risk. Do we really need to have a couple of incidents first before we go back and interrogate that? One would rather be proactive and make sure that the integrity of the process supports the outcome and the credibility of the individuals.
For ECSA to achieve its mandate, while it is not compulsory, it should be partnering with the voluntary associations. Because the wisdom of the profession, the learned society requirements for the profession. In fact, when you register based on your knowledge, your experience, and knowledge is where you study. Your experience is where did you practice, under whom did you practice, and what kind of projects did you practice on. That's all learned society stuff, that's learned activity. So for the testing process to register, one requires the learned component of your profession. Therefore, we believe it is in the interest of the country, it is in the interest of the nation's infrastructure and the administration of infrastructure, the spending on infrastructure. It's in the interest of the country to have a partnership between the Engineering Council and the learned society. There needs to be a sweet relationship between the two bodies so that we can have the best engineers practicing.
As recent as last week, when we had a meeting, VAs with the Engineering Council, one could immediately sense the sense of mistrust between the parties. And I don't think that was necessarily born out of the litigation. It's probably something that has been coming for a while, and I think the litigation simply seeks to either put us in a situation where we decide that actually we will move further apart, or we will try and come together to fix the situation. And so the working relationship is strained, and it's rather disparaging to go to a meeting with the Engineering Council's senior people, which is a VA President's Forum with the Engineering Council, each of us having various roles. Because the one thing that needs to be clarified is that somewhere along the line there's this perception that engineering in this country is controlled by the Engineering Council. That is wrong. The Engineering Council is simply the statutory body.
There have been some individuals who were in the old council that were actually doing their jobs. They were holding the council and the Engineering Council and ECSA's administration to account on certain decisions that were taken. Decisions on international travel, decisions on the roles of committees, and so on. It is these individuals who have now been excluded from the new council, we believe purely based on the fact that they were asking the tough questions.
I was part of the outgoing council. And I agree, in terms of the process, from the beginning up to a point when council actually supported the shortlisted candidates to be appointed by the minister, I fully agree the process was followed to the dot. The challenge was, after that list was submitted to the minister, somehow it was changed. Now that, in my opinion, is probably the main issue about what we're talking about. Some of us that were removed from the list and replaced, we are supporting this challenge to court, not on the basis of being disgruntled or being unhappy or whatever. In fact, being part of the ECSA Council, for me, it's got no financial benefit whatsoever. But we do it for the love of the profession, to make sure that the profession is sustainable, it's strong, it's operating properly going forward. There's a number of accords and a number of international agreements that ECSA in South Africa has. The first one is what they call Washington Accord, and it's to do with a recognition of equivalency in terms of the engineering qualifications that the South African universities offer. Then there's another one, Sydney Accord, if I'm not mistaken. It's to do with the, again, recognition of equivalence of technologist training and qualifications that are offered by South African universities. And then the last one is the Dublin Accord. It's again to do with the recognition of technicians qualifications that are offered in South Africa. What that means is, if you get a BSc degree from one of the local universities that are accredited by ECSA, or a BTech for the technologists and a diploma for the technicians, what it means, if you were to go to another country that is a signatory to the Washington Accord, or Dublin Accord, or Sydney Accord, they will recognize your qualifications based on those agreements.
All the programs that are run at universities are done according to international standards. That means then that I get my degree in South Africa, I can go anywhere in the world and my degree will be recognized as an equivalent to the local. I don't have to be worried that I may go to another country and they can say, oh, oops, you come from South Africa. Sorry, we don't regard this degree in our country because it doesn't comply with that standard. I come back to the consistency of how do we do this accreditation. If the integrity with which it's done becomes questionable and we compromise that, then we run the risk of compromising its international standing.
There have been some concerns that now with the change of the ministerial appointment at the Department of Public Works, that the court case might change its course. This is not necessarily true. The Minister of Public Works is a portfolio that an individual occupies. We were not taking the minister in his person to court. We were taking the Department of Public Works to court based on the processes that they did not follow as per the Engineering Professions Act. So the court case is still intact, as we have been legally advised.
Because we are at the moment almost at the crossroad with the ANC elective conference coming up later this year, presidential elections and all of those things. So people do have their sights on future political careers. So I would hope that they would think more broadly about the decisions they make now and not just fall for things as they stood, because a lot of the things as they stood now come from the level of involvement and the interest and perspectives that the various ministers have had. And if I were to put my political career as a minister coming in there, then I'm certainly not going to premise it on what was the perspective of the minister who left, because we may see the world differently.
Currently, South Africa produces world-class engineers that are sought after in various parts of the world. As we see the decisions being taken by the Engineering Council in recent times, we are concerned that the quality of the engineering practitioners, there are some bodies that are actually saying it's going to be easier to get a PReng. That is a major concern for the South African public. What we are saying is that people who do not qualify to become professionally registered individuals may become professionally registered individuals. That means they're in charge of infrastructure service delivery, the design of infrastructure of our roads, our shopping malls, high-rise buildings, water reticulation, electricity supply. Now, when we want that infrastructure, we want to know that that infrastructure has been provided by competent engineers. The risk that the country faces is that our infrastructure is going to be delivered by incompetent people, even though they might have a PReng, because the standard has dropped.
And the bridges start collapsing, the trains start going off the rail, and the buildings start collapsing and whatever. So the public is at risk of being, and then of course the insurance companies. If I was an insurance company, I'll be very worried that, you know, most of the insurance companies, they rely on professional engineers signing off designs and taking liability for designs, etc. Now, if I don't have faith in the process that was followed in appointing this person as a professional engineer, it means, you know, the people that I'm hiring on the basis that they are competent, it's a very, very big risk for the insurance companies and for the public in terms of safety.
It will just make young people not want to consider engineering as a career. So we need to look at how can we make sure that engineering remains a professional, iconic profession that young people want to aspire to and look up to from the time that they begin playing with Lego blocks and Makama sets to the time when they build bridges and stadiums.
I will urge the engineers, those that are registered and not registered with ECSA, to contact the voluntary association to get more information. I'm a part of this process, and it's very uncomfortable for me, but it's because I love the profession. I want to make sure that going forward, we have a profession that is credible, that is trustworthy, that is honest, that the public can rely on. So I'm urging my fellow colleagues from various sectors, whether from public sector, from the private sector, to actually get involved and get this matter to a conclusion as soon as possible.
Get involved. Ask the tough questions. Join various committees. Join the voluntary associations and ask the tough questions. Participate in making sure that the engineering bodies that we see currently are actually painting a good vision for what we want to see in the next 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 years. Are we setting those goals now, and are we planning to achieve those goals?
In our political society these days, if you don't want to align yourself with a political party, nothing wrong with that. Civil society is there. Voluntary associations is the civil society, organizations for your discipline in engineering. Get involved in the committees, understand more of what happens there, and I believe that's probably the place where you'd be able to add more value and derive value.
I am also a professionally registered individual, and I would encourage every young person to get his PReng or her PReng or PR Tech-eng or PR Techni-eng. It is that one definition as a professional that defines you for job opportunities, for salary increases, for more levels of responsibility, and so on. Having said that, we still need to hold the Engineering Council to account on the value. Are we going to retain the value of professional registration? Any questions that individuals have on professional registration must be directed to the Engineering Council of South Africa, because the voluntary associations are not party to the process anymore, which is very sad. It is a sad day when there is a separation between the Engineering Council and the voluntary association.